A dead deer can disappear surprisingly fast. Scavengers tear it apart, insects enter the body, rain carries material into the soil, bones are dragged beneath brush and scattered across hundreds of feet. So perhaps the most famous defense of Bigfoot makes sense. Maybe no body has ever been found because the forest removes the evidence. But there is a problem. A body is only one of the things a living species leaves behind. And if Bigfoot has been wandering North America for generations, the forest would have to erase far more than the dead. It would have to erase the living, too. Ask why no hunter has discovered a dead Bigfoot, and you will usually hear some version of the same answer. People rarely find dead bears either. That claim contains a real observation. Wild animals do not normally walk onto a trail and die where humans can easily collect them. Sick or injured animals may retreat into dense cover. Many deaths occur in remote terrain. A carcass can be opened by scavengers within hours and distributed across a wide area. The USDA notes that carcasses left in the field provide food for scavengers and invertebrates. Decomposition, weather, vegetation, and animal activity can make remains difficult to recognize surprisingly quickly. Forests are not museums. They recycle bodies. And the Pacific Northwest offers an enormous amount of cover. Steep valleys, thick vegetation, remote watersheds and regions where a person could disappear from view only a few steps from a road. If the question were simply, could one Bigfoot carcass vanish before anyone found it? The honest answer would be, yes, it absolutely could. But that is not the question we are actually asking. Bigfoot reports do not describe one immortal animal. They describe a population spread across an enormous geographical range. Witnesses have reported different sizes, colors, and apparent ages. Some accounts even describe juveniles or family groups. If those reports represent a biological species, then Bigfoot must reproduce. A viable population would require more than a handful of individuals. It would need enough animals to locate mates, raise offspring, and survive disease, accidents, genetic problems, and environmental change. And every member of that population would eventually die. Not all in deep ravines, not all beneath inaccessible vegetation. Some would die near streams. Some would be injured crossing roads. Some would be caught in fires, floods, or severe winters. Young animals would die, old animals would die. Predators and scavengers would move their remains. The forest might conceal most of those deaths. Science does not require most. It requires one specimen with a documented chain of custody. A jaw, a tooth, a piece of tissue, or a bone containing DNA that cannot be matched to a known species. After decades of organized searching and thousands of reported encounters, that specimen has not appeared. And the missing body is only the beginning. Large mammals constantly leave pieces of themselves behind. They shed hair, they defecate, they bleed, they urinate, they lose skin cells, they disturb feeding sites, they create paths, sleeping areas, and repeated patterns of movement. Modern wildlife biologists do not need to see an animal directly to prove it exists. Bears can be studied using hair snares. DNA can be recovered from scat. Camera traps record animals moving when no humans are nearby. Environmental DNA can reveal genetic traces left as organisms pass through an ecosystem. The United States Geological Survey describes eDNA as a way to detect rare and secretive species from trace genetic material in their environment. It does not work equally well in every habitat, and a negative result in one location proves very little. But it demonstrates something important. An animal does not need to donate its body to science. It only needs to touch the world. That changes the Bigfoot problem. The mystery is no longer why nobody has found a corpse. It is why supposed encounter sites so rarely produce uncontested hair, blood, scat, tissue, or DNA belonging to an unknown North American primate. One of the most famous stories seems, at first, to offer exactly that kind of evidence. In the 1970s, the FBI received hairs connected to the Bigfoot phenomenon after Peter Byrne, a prominent investigator, requested their examination. The surviving FBI file later became public. The story is sometimes retold as evidence that the government secretly investigated Sasquatch. The documents show something less dramatic. The FBI agreed to examine the material as an exception. Its laboratory compared the hairs with known samples. In 1977, the Bureau reported the result. They belonged to the deer family. That does not prove every unidentified hair has an ordinary source. but it reveals a recurring pattern. The evidence often seems extraordinary before testing. Once it enters a laboratory, it becomes bear, deer, livestock, another familiar animal, or human contamination. The classified-looking folder survives in popular memory. The laboratory result usually does not. In 2014, a peer-reviewed study led by geneticist Brian Sykes examined hair samples attributed to Bigfoot, the Yeti, and other anomalous primates. Researchers received dozens of submissions from museums, collections, and individual investigators. 30 samples produced DNA suitable for analysis. The identified sources included known animals such as bears, wolves, dogs, raccoons, horses, cattle, deer, and humans. The study did not identify an unknown great ape living in North America. This result did not prove that no such creature could exist anywhere. Testing a collection of claimed samples is not the same as testing every forest, but it did demonstrate the central difficulty. For decades, believers have said the decisive evidence is probably sitting in someone's collection, waiting for science to take it seriously. When science did take selected samples seriously, the mystery repeatedly collapsed into familiar wildlife. Then an even stranger transformation occurred. Instead of weakening the legend, the failed evidence made Bigfoot more elusive. The early modern image of Bigfoot did not require supernatural intelligence. It was usually presented as an unknown animal, a large, hairy, flesh and blood primate. But an ordinary animal should eventually make ordinary mistakes. It should leave useful DNA. It should trigger clear trail camera images. It should be struck by a vehicle, trapped by a fire, found by a logging crew, or recorded from multiple angles. As cameras multiplied and biological detection improved, explanations for the absence of evidence became more ambitious. Bigfoot was not merely rare, it deliberately avoided cameras. It recognized guns, it buried its dead. It removed injured members of its group. In some versions, it could sense electronics, use infrasound, disappear into caves, or even move between dimensions. Notice what happened. Each new detection method did not narrow the claim. The creature acquired a new ability that made the method ineffective. The absence of a body stopped being a problem. It became proof of Bigfoot's intelligence. The burial theory is especially powerful because it answers the question with a behavior that feels almost human. If Bigfoot lives in social groups and protects its dead, then perhaps bodies are intentionally hidden. Some animals do show complex responses to death. Elephants may investigate bones and remain near dead companions. Primates can carry or guard deceased infants. Social animals may react with agitation, attention, or prolonged contact. But deliberate burial is a much larger claim. It would require evidence of graves, excavated soil, tools, or repeated mortuary sites. Even human burials are discovered. Soil shifts, bones survive. Flooding, erosion, construction, and animal activity expose graves that were meant to remain closed. And burial would not solve the wider biological problem. It would not remove shed hair, feces, blood, placentas, lost teeth, abandoned food, footprints with reliable anatomy, or DNA left along travel routes. It explains one missing category by inventing a behavior for which there is also no verified evidence. That does not make it impossible. It makes it an explanation constructed from the absence it is supposed to explain. The strongest argument for Bigfoot is often the landscape itself. Stand at the edge of an old-growth forest, and the possibility feels obvious. The trees appear endless. Visibility collapses between ferns, shadows, and fallen timber. Humans visit only a fraction of the terrain. There are unquestionably places where a large animal could avoid people for long periods. But remote does not mean biologically unobserved. The forests associated with Bigfoot are crossed by rivers, logging roads, highways, and trails. They are used by hunters, firefighters, foresters, tribal communities, scientists, and recreationists. Wildlife researchers deploy cameras, collect hair and scat, analyze predation sites, and monitor animal movement. Known animals appear through multiple independent evidence streams. A bear may avoid direct observation, but it leaves tracks, scat, hair, feeding damage, genetic samples, photographs, roadkill, and bodies. Scientists can estimate populations without meeting every bear. Bigfoot produces a very different pattern. Many stories, many ambiguous images, and many footprints. But no universally accepted biological anchor tying those categories to one unknown species. That distinction matters. A rare animal is difficult to see. A non-existent animal is impossible to verify. From a distance, those conditions can look remarkably similar. If there is no confirmed body, why do sincere reports continue? Because not every mistaken sighting is a lie. Human perception reconstructs incomplete information. Distance removes detail. Darkness alters scale. Fear narrows attention. Memory changes as an event is retold. A bear standing or walking briefly on two legs can create a startlingly human outline. A person in dark clothing, a burned stump, or an animal seen through branches can become something else when only a few seconds are available. Then, there are deliberate hoaxes, including fabricated tracks and costumes. A hoax can explain an individual case, but it does not mean every witness is dishonest. Folklore supplies the final ingredient. Once people know the expected shape, massive shoulders, long arms, dark hair, a human-like stride, ambiguous encounters have somewhere to go. The legend gives an uncertain image a name. That is why Bigfoot can remain culturally real even when it is biologically unconfirmed. People are not necessarily seeing the same creature. They may be using the same creature to explain different experiences. The modern American Bigfoot story took a decisive turn in 1958. At a road construction site near Bluff Creek in Northern California, enormous human-like tracks appeared around heavy equipment. Bulldozer operator Jerry Crew made a plaster cast and brought it to a local newspaper. The image of Crew holding the enormous footprint spread widely, and the name Bigfoot entered popular culture. Older indigenous traditions involving wild or powerful forest beings long predate this episode and should not be reduced to a single modern monster. But the commercial, newspaper-era Bigfoot familiar today was shaped by photographs, casts, headlines, and later film. The legend was born into a world of evidence, not a distant medieval world where monsters survived through copied manuscripts, a modern world in which the creature was expected to leave measurable tracks and eventually submit to a camera. That expectation produced the mystery we now inherit. Every new footprint promised a body. Every blurry image promised a clearer one. And every year without either made Bigfoot seem less like an animal and more like something designed to remain just beyond confirmation. So, why has no one ever found a Bigfoot body? A single carcass could disappear. Scavengers and decomposition are real. Remote forests are real. Rare animals can go unseen. But a breeding population cannot consist only of sightings. It must eat, reproduce, shed, defecate, bleed, and alter its environment. The greater the population and the longer it survives, the more independent traces it should create. The deepest problem is therefore not one missing body. It is the absence of convergence. No body connects to the footprints. No verified DNA connects to the films. No hair connects to the eyewitness descriptions. Each category remains suspended alone, supported mainly by the next ambiguous category. And that may be why the mystery survives. If one body were found, Bigfoot would become an animal. It would receive a scientific name, a habitat range, a diet, and a conservation status. Many of the stories would immediately become testable, and many would be proven wrong. But without a body, Bigfoot can remain every possible thing at once: animal, ancestor, guardian, survivor, warning, hoax, and shadow. The forest may be capable of erasing a carcass. What it cannot easily erase is an entire species, and after all these years, that is the evidence we are really missing.